The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched as far as the eye could see. Its crystal walls caught the light from 3 different suns and threw rainbow patterns across the floor. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the massive space. Some walked on legs, others floated in the air, and a few rolled along the ground like living boulders. Elena Vasquez stood at the center of it all. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Next to the fancy robes and glowing armor of the other ambassadors, she looked plain. But her voice carried clearly through the hall's translation system as she spoke to the High Council. The human delegation is proud to report another successful year of peacekeeping, Elena said. Her words were automatically changed into dozens of different languages, sounds, and even chemical signals for the various species listening. We resolved 43 conflicts this year. Trade disputes between the Outer Rim colonies are down by 60%. No wars have started in any sector where human mediators were present. The council members sat on a raised platform that curved around the speaking area. Each species had their own special seat designed for their body type. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin gray creatures with huge black eyes. They never showed any emotion on their faces. The Kalari were covered in thick fur and had 4 arms each. They sat very straight and proud. The Symphites were harder to see clearly because their bodies seemed to shift and blur, as if they were made of living mist. Elena continued her report. Human diplomatic teams have also helped establish new trade routes through the Whirlpool Nebula. Our pilots are the only ones who can safely navigate those energy storms. This has cut travel time between the core worlds and the Eastern Spiral by 30%. One of the Zephyrians raised a long, thin hand. Ambassador Vasquez, it said in a voice that sounded like wind through metal. Your species has been useful in these small matters. But we must discuss more important things. The Council has been reviewing humanity's role in galactic affairs. Elena felt a cold feeling in her stomach, but she kept her face calm. Of course, Councilor Zeth, what concerns you? Humans are still very new to galactic society, said Councilor Markthorn of the Kalari, his deep voice rumbling through the hall. Only 200 years. Most of us have been part of the Confederation for thousands of years. We have experience. We understand how things work. With respect, Elena replied, humans may be new, but we have proven ourselves. Our success rate in solving conflicts is higher than any other species. A sound like musical chimes came from the Symphite section. When they spoke, it was as if many voices were talking at once. Success in small conflicts, yes. But can humans handle truly important decisions? Decisions that affect entire star systems? Your emotional nature makes you unpredictable. Elena had heard this criticism many times before. Other species thought humans were too emotional, too quick to act on feelings instead of pure logic. They did not understand that emotions could be a strength, not a weakness. Emotions helped humans understand what other species were really feeling, even when they tried to hide it. Our emotional nature is exactly why we succeed, Elena said. We can understand the real reasons behind conflicts. When the Crystal Singers of Melodia fought the shell workers of Oceanus last year, everyone else saw it as a simple resource dispute. But we understood it was really about grief. The Crystal Singers had lost their homeworld and felt homeless. Once we addressed that feeling, the conflict ended in days. The Zephyrian counselor's black eyes stared at her. Emotions are inefficient. They cloud judgment. Logic is pure and reliable. Logic is important, Elena agreed. But logic without understanding leads to solutions that do not work. The Draconis War lasted 50 years because everyone involved used only logic. It ended when humans helped both sides understand each other's fears. The hall fell quiet for a moment. Then Councilor Markthorn spoke again. The Council appreciates humanity's contributions, but we must think about the future. The galaxy is becoming more complex. We need steady leadership, not emotional decisions. Elena noticed something in the way the counselors looked at each other. Quick glances that meant they had talked about this before. Private conversations that did not include humans. She felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her voice steady. "What exactly are you suggesting?" she asked. "Nothing has been decided yet," said the Sci-Fi representative, though their many voices did not sound convincing. "We are simply reviewing all diplomatic protocols, making sure the galaxy's government works as efficiently as possible." After the official meeting ended, Elena walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime. The station was like a small city floating in space. Different sections were built for different species, so the architecture changed as you moved around. One area had very tall ceilings for the bird-like ethers. Another had pools of liquid for the water-breathing aquades. Elena's assistant, Marcus, caught up with her near the human quarters. He was young and eager, fresh from Earth's diplomatic academy. "That went well, I think," he said. "The conflict resolution numbers speak for themselves." Elena shook her head. "Something is wrong, Marcus. Did you notice how they acted? The questions they asked? They seemed a bit distant, but that's normal for the Zephyrians. And the Kalari are always formal. It was more than that." Elena stopped walking and looked out through a large window at the stars. "They have been meeting without us, making decisions. I can feel it." Marcus frowned. "But why would they do that? We have been nothing but helpful. Humanity has brought peace to more sectors than any other species." "Maybe that is exactly the problem," Elena said quietly. "Maybe we have been too successful. Maybe they see us as a threat." Elena thought about her species' journey to the stars. Humans have discovered faster than light travel later than most other species. When they finally reached other star systems, they found a galaxy already organized under the Confederation. Humans have been grateful to join, eager to learn and help. But humans were different from other species in important ways. Most galactic races had evolved past strong emotions millions of years ago. They were logical, efficient, and predictable. Humans still felt joy, anger, sadness, and hope. Other species saw this as primitive. Humans saw it as their greatest strength. Elena made a decision as she stood there looking at the stars. Tomorrow, she would start her own investigation. If the Council was planning something that would hurt humanity or the peace they had worked so hard to build, she needed to know. The galaxy was bigger than any one species, but humans had earned their place in it. She just hoped she was wrong about what she was feeling. 3 weeks after the Council meeting, Elena's worst fears came true. The emergency alarm echoed through Nexus Prime at 3 in the morning, station time. Red lights flashed in the corridors as Elena rushed from her quarters to the emergency session hall. The situation was bad. The Kalari Empire and the Zephyrian Collective were moving their fleets toward the outer spiral. Both sides claimed the other had attacked their mining operations in the asteroid fields near the broken star system. Ships were gathering. Weapons were being charged. War seemed certain. Elena found Marcus already in the human diplomatic office, pulling up star charts and communication logs. His face was pale with worry. How did this happen so fast? Elena asked. Yesterday, both sides were talking about trade agreements. Today, they are ready to fight? Marcus shook his head. I do not understand it either. Look at these reports. He pointed to his screen. The Kalari say Zephyrian ships destroyed 3 of their mining platforms. The Zephyrians say Kalari raiders stole 2 months' worth of rare metals from their operations. Elena studied the information. Something felt wrong. The attacks were too perfect, too designed to make both sides equally angry. In real conflicts, one side usually had a better claim than the other. This looked almost artificial. Marcus, Pull up the shipping schedules for that sector. I want to know what ships were supposed to be there and when." While Marcus worked, Elena walked to her private office and activated her secure communication system. She had contacts in many species governments, beings who trusted humanity's honest approach to diplomacy. If anyone knew what was really happening, they would. Her first call was to Commander Dex, a Kalari military officer she had worked with during the Meridian Crisis 2 years ago. Dex was honorable, but not stupid. He would tell her the truth. "Ambassador Vasquez," Dex said, when his image appeared on the screen. His forearms moved in the Kalari gesture of greeting. "I am glad you called. This situation is dangerous. What can you tell me about the attacks?" Elena asked. Dex looked around, then moved closer to his camera. "Something is not right. The mining platforms that were destroyed, they were old and scheduled to be replaced next month anyway. And the attacks happened at exactly the time when both sides would have the strongest emotional response." "What do you mean?" "The Kalari platforms were destroyed during our Morning of Ancestors ceremony. We were all thinking about honor and revenge. The Zephyrian theft happened during their Logic Festival, when their leaders would respond with cold calculation instead of negotiation." Elena felt her heart sink. Someone had planned this conflict carefully, knowing exactly how each species would react. But who would benefit from a war between two of the galaxy's most powerful species? Her second call was to Resonance of Truth, one of the Symphytes who had always been friendly to humans. The Symphytes' multiple consciousness made them hard to fool, so if anyone could see through deception, it would be them. "Human friend Elena," came the voice like many people singing together. "We have been hoping you would contact us. Our combined thoughts are troubled. What do you sense about this conflict? Preparation without announcement. Planning without consultation. The warpath was made ready before the attacks happened. Ships moved to positions days ago, before anyone spoke of problems." Elena closed her eyes. "Who moved them?" "The Council's emergency response protocol was activated, but the authorization came from closed meetings. Human representatives were not invited to these meetings." Elena's hands tightened into fists. The emergency response protocol was supposed to be used only for galaxy-wide threats. It let the Council move military forces and make decisions without the usual diplomatic processes. Most importantly, it could only be activated by a unanimous vote of all Council members. "Resonance, are you saying the Council voted to activate emergency powers without telling humans about the vote?" "Truth and sadness, yes. The vote happened in a session marked as Administrative Review. Human delegation was told the meeting was about supply schedules for the station." Elena felt sick. Her species had been deliberately excluded from a major decision, then given false information about what the meeting was for. This was not a mistake or an oversight. This was a plan. Her third call was to Dr. Yelan Ozer, a human scientist working with the Galactic Research Institute. Yelan was not a diplomat, but she had access to data that might show the real pattern behind recent events. "Elena, I have been trying to reach you," Yelan said as soon as the connection opened. "Have you seen the resource allocation reports for the last 6 months?" "No, why?" "Someone has been quietly moving military supplies to the border regions. Food, fuel, medical supplies, weapons. Enough to support a war that could last years. But here is the strange part. The shipments were authorized using human diplomatic codes." Elena's blood went cold. "That is impossible. We did not authorize any military shipments." "I know, but someone used your authorization codes. If this war starts and people investigate the supply chain, it will look like humans helped prepare for the conflict. We would be blamed for the whole thing." The pieces were falling into place now. Elena could see the entire plan. The Council had decided that humans were becoming too influential in galactic affairs. They wanted to remove humanity from power, that they needed a reason that would not make them look like the villains. So they created a conflict that would require human mediation, then set things up so that humans would fail. When the war started, investigation would show that human diplomatic codes had been used to prepare for the fighting. Humanity would be blamed for the war and removed from all important positions. The other species would take over all diplomatic duties, and humans would become just another minor member of the Confederation. Elena sat in her chair and stared at the stars outside her office window. Everything humans had built, all the trust they had earned, all the peace they had created, it was about to be destroyed by the very people they had tried to serve. She could expose the plan, but who would believe her? The evidence against humanity looked real. The other council members would claim they had no choice but to respond to human treachery. Even if some beings believed her, it would create chaos that would help no one. Or she could try to solve the crisis the way she was supposed to. Negotiate between the Kalari and Zephyrians, stop the war, and accept whatever punishment the council had planned for humanity afterward. It might save lives in the short term, but it would doom her species to a future as second-class citizens in a galaxy they had helped save. Elena made her choice. She activated the emergency communication system that could reach every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy. Her message would go out on all frequencies in all human languages. With the highest priority encoding dot, she took a deep breath and began to speak. This is Ambassador Elena Vasquez, speaking for all of humanity. Effective immediately, Earth and all human colonies are withdrawing from the Galactic Confederation. All diplomatic relationships are ended. All human ships and personnel in Confederation space will return home within 72 hours. We will not participate in wars we did not start, and we will not serve people who do not trust us. Elena paused, thinking of everything humanity was giving up. Then she continued. To our friends among the stars, we are sorry it has come to this. To those who planned our downfall, you will learn what the galaxy is like without us. Do not follow us. She ended the transmission and sat back in her chair. There was no going back now. The first sign of trouble came just 12 hours after Elena's announcement. The trade ship Stellar Wind was supposed to deliver food supplies to the colonies on Kepler 7. The ship was halfway through the Crimson Nebula when its navigation system failed. Captain Jorix of the Ether species had made this run dozens of times before, but he had always followed human pilots through the nebula's dangerous energy storms. The electric clouds could fry a ship's computers in seconds if you took the wrong path. Only humans seemed to have the strange ability to feel their way through the storms, reading patterns that their instruments could not detect. Now, Captain Jorix was alone in his ship, watching his navigation screen fill with static. The energy storm was growing stronger, and he had no idea which way to go. After 6 terrifying hours of drifting blind, he managed to turn around and escape the nebula. But the food supplies never reached Kepler 7. Similar problems were happening across the galaxy. The route through the Dragon's Gate asteroid field was impossible without human pilots. The shortcut across the Void Sea required navigators who could work by instinct rather than instruments. Dozens of trade routes that had been reliable for decades suddenly became too dangerous to use. On Nexus Prime, Counselor Zeth stared at reports flooding in from across Confederation space. The Zephyrian's logical mind tried to process what was happening, but the numbers did not make sense. How can one species cause this much disruption? He asked his aide, a younger Zephyrian named Kren. The humans were involved in more systems than we calculated, Kren replied. They did not just solve conflicts. They maintained the infrastructure that prevented conflicts from starting. Zeth looked at a map showing trade routes across the galaxy. Red marks indicated routes that were now closed or delayed. There were hundreds of them. Show me the alternative paths around these obstacles. Kren worked at his computer for several minutes. When he looked up, his face was even more pale than usual. Sir, there are no good alternatives. These routes were chosen because they were the fastest and safest paths between star systems. The other options add weeks or months to travel time. Some sectors will be completely cut off. Meanwhile, in the Kalari Command Center, General Vorthik was dealing with an even more immediate crisis. The war with the Zephyrians had begun as planned, but something was going wrong. His forces could not coordinate with their allies. For 200 years, humans had managed the translation systems that let different species communicate during military operations. The Kalari used battle songs to coordinate their attacks. The Equate allies fought in formations based on ocean currents. The rock people of Petra moved according to geological rhythms. All of these different combat styles required precise timing and communication. General, our allies are not responding to our signals, reported Commander Vex. The Equade ships are moving in circles. The rock people's ground forces have stopped advancing entirely. Vorthik growled in frustration. What about the automatic translation systems? They are failing, sir. The human design protocols are not working without human oversight. The Equade are receiving our battle songs as mating calls. The rock people think our advance orders are insults to their ancestors. The war that was supposed to be quick and decisive was turning into chaos. Without proper coordination, the Kalari forces were fighting alone against the full might of the Zephyrian collective. But the biggest shock came from the smaller species scattered throughout the galaxy. The melodic builders of Harmony Station sent a desperate message to the Council just 3 days after humanity's withdrawal. The message arrived as a complex musical composition that normally would have been translated by human linguists. Without them, the Council could only understand fragments of the communication. What they could understand was terrifying. The melodic builders were under attack by the Dread Fleet, a group of space pirates that had been quiet for decades. The pirates knew that without human peacekeepers in the area, the small colony was defenseless. The builders were asking for help, but their musical language was too complex for automatic translation. Counselor Mark Thorne tried to send Kalari ships to help, but they were too busy with the war against the Zephyrians. The Zephyrians calculated that protecting the melodic builders was not cost-effective during wartime. The Symphites could not reach a consensus about whether to act. By the time anyone could respond, Harmony Station had gone silent. Similar attacks were happening everywhere. The Crystal Singers of Melodia found their trade routes blocked by aggressive neighbors who had feared human retaliation for decades. The shell workers of Oceanus were invaded by the Razor Clan, who had been held back only by human-enforced peace treaties. Dr. Yelan Ozer sat in her laboratory on Nexus Prime, watching the galaxy fall apart through her computer screens. As a scientist, she was supposed to stay neutral in political matters. But as a human, she felt sick watching the chaos spread. Her research partner, Dr. Velix of the Ether species, floated beside her workstation. The bird-like alien's feathers were ruffled with stress. "I do not understand," Dr. Velix said. "The humans were just one species among hundreds. How could their absence cause all of this?" Yelin looked up from her screens, which showed spreading conflicts across dozens of star systems. "We were not just one species, Velix. We were the species that connected all the others." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. How many different species did you interact with before humans joined the Confederation?" Dr. Velix considered the question. "My own people, the Ethers. Sometimes the Zephyrians, when necessary. Perhaps 3 or 4 others over my entire lifetime. And now? Now I work with beings from 30 different worlds. I have friends among the rock people, colleagues among the Symphites, students from species I had never heard of 50 years ago. Dr. Velix paused as understanding dawned. The humans made that possible. Exactly. We were not just diplomats and peacekeepers. We were translators, bridge builders, connection makers. We helped every species understand every other species. Without us, the galaxy is breaking back into isolated groups that cannot talk to each other. Dr. Velix's feathers drooped. Can the damage be repaired? Yilan shook her head sadly. Not quickly. It took humans 2 centuries to build these connections. Most of the people who understood how the systems worked have already left Confederation space. Even if the Council apologized tomorrow, it would take decades to rebuild what was lost. On the 4th day after humanity's withdrawal, Councillor Zeth called an emergency session of the High Council. The great hall that had seemed so magnificent just weeks before now felt empty and cold. Many of the smaller species representatives had not shown up, either because they could not travel safely through the disrupted trade routes or because they were too busy dealing with crises at home. The situation is becoming untenable, Zeth announced. We must take action to restore order. What do you suggest? Asked Councillor Markthorne. The Kalari looked tired and frustrated. His people's war was going badly without proper communication with their allies. We send a diplomatic mission to human space. We negotiate for their return. The Simphite representatives' many voices sounded confused. Return to what? The same positions as before? They will demand explanation of betrayal. They will require accountability for deception. Zeth's logical mind had already calculated the problem. Yes, they will want to know why we acted against them. We will have to admit that we saw them as a threat to our authority. And if we admit this, Markthorne said slowly, we also admit that we started the current war as part of a plan to remove them from power. The other species will never trust us again. But if we do not admit it, the Simphite sang, the humans will not return. And without them, the galaxy will continue to tear itself apart. The 3 council leaders sat in silence, finally understanding the trap they had built for themselves. They had wanted to remove humanity from power, but humanity's power had never come from force or threats. It had come from being trusted by everyone else. Now that trust was broken, and there was no easy way to repair it. Outside the Great Hall's windows, space filled with the lights of fleeing ships as more species abandoned Nexus Prime for the safety of their homeworlds. The heart of galactic civilization was emptying out, and the council members could only watch it happen. Dr. Velix found Yulan in her laboratory the next morning, staring out at the stars. The ether scientist landed gently beside her human colleague. Any word from the human fleet? Dr. Velix asked. Nothing. They have completely vanished from all our sensors. It is as if they never existed. Where do you think they went? Yulan smiled for the first time in days, though it was a sad smile. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can build a new life without worrying about people who do not trust them. Dr. Velix was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, do you think they will ever come back? Yulan looked out at the chaos spreading across the galaxy, at the trade routes closing and the wars beginning, and the small species being swallowed by larger ones. She thought about her people, probably building new homes in some distant part of space, finally free from the politics and deception of the Confederation. I do not know, she said, but I hope that someday the galaxy will deserve to have them back. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was dying. Commander Dex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Honor's Edge, and watched his fleet retreat from what should have been an easy victory. The Kalari Empire was losing the war against the Zephyrians, despite having more ships and better weapons. Without human translators to coordinate with their allies, every battle turned into a disaster. Sir, the Equade forces are firing on our own ships again, reported his communications officer. They think our retreat signal is an attack order. Dex closed his 4 eyes in exhaustion. This was the 3rd time this week that friendly fire had caused more damage than enemy weapons. Send the Aquade ships home. We cannot work with allies we cannot talk to. What about the Rock People ground forces on Titan 7? Leave them? They stopped following orders when they decided our battle plans were religiously offensive. They can fight their own war now. The Kalari had always prided themselves on their honor and their ability to work with other species. Now they were alone, fighting an enemy that grew stronger every day, because the Zephyrians had learned to use pure logic instead of emotion in warfare. Without the chaos of managing allies they could not communicate with, the Zephyrian forces were brutally efficient, but the Kalari were not the only ones suffering. On Nexus Prime, what remained of the Galactic Council watched reports of disasters from across their former territory. The melodic builders were extinct. The Dread Fleet had destroyed Harmony Station and moved on to attack other defenseless colonies. Without human peacekeepers to stop them, the pirates were cutting a path of destruction through the Outer Rim. The Crystal Singers had lost their homeworld to the Razor Clan and were now refugees, scattered across a dozen different systems. The Shell Workers were fighting a civil war because different groups could not agree on how to respond to the invasions. The trade network had collapsed completely. Food shipments could not get through the dangerous routes that only human pilots had been able to navigate. Entire worlds were facing starvation. Medicine was running out in hospitals across the galaxy because the supply chains had been too complex for other species to manage. Counselor Zeth studied the casualty reports with his usual logical approach. But even he was shocked by the numbers. 43 million dead in the past month alone, he reported to his fellow council members. Most from starvation and preventable diseases, not warfare. Councilor Markthorne slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. This is madness. We wanted to reduce human influence, not destroy civilization itself. The Simfied representatives' many voices were singing a song of mourning. Responsibility for death weighs on all of us. The plan to remove humans has become plan to kill galaxy. We have to contact them, Seth said. Whatever it costs, whatever they demand, we must bring the humans back. How? Markthorne asked. We sent 12 different diplomatic missions to human space. None of them found anything. It is as if humanity simply vanished from the galaxy. That was not quite true, though. Deep space monitoring stations had detected something troubling at the galaxy's edge. Huge energy signatures that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Ships larger than anything in the Confederation fleet. Technology that did not match any known design. Dr. Johan Ozer had been studying these signals for weeks. She was one of the few humans still in Confederation space, having been granted special permission to remain at her research station. The Council hoped she could help them understand where her people had gone. The energy patterns are definitely human, she reported to the Council via video link. But the technology is far more advanced than anything we had when I left Earth. These are not refugee ships. These are warships, and they are massive. Councilor Zeth leaned forward. How is that possible? Humanity's technology was always impressive, but not significantly ahead of our own. Dr. Yelan looked uncomfortable. I have been thinking about that. What if humans were always more advanced than they showed? What if they kept their best technology secret? The idea sent a chill through the room. The Zephyrians had always believed their technology was superior to everyone else's. The Kalari thought their weapons were the most powerful in the galaxy. But what if humanity had been holding back? That would mean, Markthorne started. That would mean they could have conquered us at any time, Zeth finished. But instead, they chose to be peacekeepers. The Simfight Collective's voices were barely a whisper. Choice to serve instead of choice to rule. Wisdom beyond understanding. Dr. Yilon continued her report. There is something else, My long-range scanners have detected human ships making contact with species from other parts of the galaxy. Groups we have never seen before. It looks like they are building new alliances. This news was even more frightening. The Confederation had always assumed they knew about all the intelligent species in the galaxy. But humans had been explorers even before they joined the galactic community. While other species stayed close to their homeworlds, human ships had traveled to the furthest edges of space. But what if they had found allies that the Confederation did not know about? The answer came 2 weeks later, when the first reports arrived from the frontier worlds. The Savage Clans, a group of warrior species that lived beyond Confederation space, had suddenly stopped their raids on border colonies. Instead of attacking, they were offering trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The message they sent was simple. Humanity has shown us a better way. We stand with Earth now. Similar reports came from dozens of other groups. The wanderer fleets that had roamed empty space for centuries. The deep builders who lived in the cores of dead stars. The void swimmers who had never communicated with any other species before. All of them were suddenly working together. And all of them mentioned humanity as their new allies. General Vorthik received the intelligence reports in his command bunker on Kalari Prime. His homeworld was under siege by Zephyrian forces, and his own fleet was scattered and broken. Reading about humanity's growing alliance network made him feel sick. "Sir," said his aide, a young officer named Krell, "we are receiving a transmission from the edge of our sensor range. It is on old human diplomatic frequencies." Vorthik looked up from the reports. "Human? But there are no human ships in this sector." "That is what makes it strange, sir. The signal is very strong, as if it is coming from something very large." Vorthik activated the communication system. The screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a ship unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of flowing metal. The display showed star maps that included parts of the galaxy he did not recognize. And in the captain's chair sat a human woman in a uniform he had never seen before. "General Vorthik," she said. "I am Captain Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Fleet. We need to talk." Vorthik's blood went cold. The Human Defense Fleet? How long had that existed? "Captain Chun, I was told that all humans had withdrawn from Confederation space." "We did, but we have been monitoring the situation. The genocide taking place in Confederation space is unacceptable." "Genocide?" Vorthik was confused. "We are at war, but we are not killing civilians." Captain Chun's expression did not change. "The starvation on 47 worlds. The medical supply crisis that has killed millions. The abandonment of smaller species to raiders and slavers. What would you call it?" Vorthik realized with horror that she was right. By abandoning their duties as peacekeepers, the larger species had left the smaller ones to die. It might not have been intentional, but the result was the same as genocide. "Captain, we did not want this to happen. The situation has gotten out of control. We know. We also know who really started this crisis." Captain Chun touched something on her command panel, and the screen split to show intelligence data that made Vorthik's heart sink. It was complete records of the secret council meetings, the plan to blame humanity for the war. Even the authorization codes that had been stolen to make it look like humans had helped prepare the conflict. "You have been watching us," Vorthik said. "We have been protecting ourselves. Humanity learned long ago that peaceful intentions are not enough if you cannot defend them. While we served as your diplomats and peacekeepers, our best minds were designing ships and weapons that could protect us if the galaxy ever turned against us." Captain Chun stood up, and Vorthik could see that her ship's bridge was enormous. Through the viewports, he caught glimpses of other ships in formation. Dozens of them, all larger than anything the Confederation had ever built. "General, I am sending you the location coordinates for a meeting." If the Confederation truly wants to end this crisis, send your best negotiator. But understand, humanity is not coming back as your servants. If we return at all, it will be as your equals. The transmission ended, leaving Vorthok alone with the most important choice his species had ever faced. He could ignore the humans and watch his civilization continue to collapse. Or he could admit that the Kalari Empire had made a terrible mistake and beg for forgiveness from the species they had betrayed. Either way, it was clear that the galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. The question now was whether there would be anything left of the Confederation for humans to save. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, a single ship appeared in the space around Nexus Prime. It was sleek and beautiful, unlike the massive warships that had been spotted at the galaxy's edge. This vessel looked like a work of art made of flowing silver and blue light. But the energy readings it gave off made every sensor on the station scream warnings about unknown weapon systems. Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, wearing a uniform that mixed human designs with patterns she had learned from the new allies her people had found. Behind her, the bridge crew included not just humans, but beings from species the Confederation had never seen before. The navigator was one of the void swimmers, a creature that looked like a living starlight. The communications officer was a deep builder, whose crystalline body could process thousands of languages at once. Admiral, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 different Kalari fleets, reported her tactical officer, a human named James Park. The Zephyrians are asking for safe passage out of the war zone. The Symphites want to know if we can help them stop their civil war. Elena nodded but did not smile. The galaxy was broken, and putting it back together would not be easy. Send the same message to all of them. Tell them I will meet with the Council in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, but this time we talk as equals. The news of Elena's return spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. She was no longer just an ambassador. The title on her uniform read Admiral Elena Vasquez, Speaker for Independent Humanity and Allied Species. It was a title that carried the weight of entire civilizations behind it. Dr. Yilan Ozer was waiting at the docking bay when Elena's shuttle arrived. The scientist had stayed behind when the other humans left, working desperately to find ways to keep critical systems running without human oversight. She looked tired and sad, but her eyes lit up when she saw her old friend. Elena, thank the stars you are alive. We were not sure if any of you had survived. Elena hugged her friend warmly. Survived? Yilan, we have done much more than survive. Come with me. I want you to see what humanity has built. They walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime toward the Great Hall. The station felt empty and broken. Many of the fancy decorations were gone, sold to pay for emergency supplies. Whole sections had been sealed off because there were not enough people left to maintain them. The proud heart of galactic civilization had become a shadow of itself. Elena, you have to understand how bad things have gotten, Yilan said as they walked. Entire species have been wiped out. The trade network has collapsed. Billions have died from starvation and disease. The Council knows they made a mistake, but they do not know how to fix it. I know, Elena replied. We have been watching. We have also been helping quietly. The supply ships that have been bringing food to the outer colonies? Those were ours. The medical supplies that arrived at the refugee camps? We sent those too. The mysterious defensive fleets that drove off the Dread Fleet pirates? That was us as well. Yilan stopped walking, staring at her friend in surprise. But why? After what they did to us, why would you help? Elena's expression was sad but determined. Because that is who humans are, Yilan. We do not let people die just because their leaders made stupid choices. But this time, we helped on our terms, from a position of strength instead of weakness. They reached the Great Hall, where the remaining council members were waiting. The room that had once held hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy now had only a few dozen beings scattered across the vast space. Counselor Zeth of the Zephyrians looked thinner and more tired than Elena remembered. Counselor Mark Thorne of the Kalari had scars from recent battles. The Simphite representatives seemed dimmer, as if parts of their collective consciousness had been lost. Elena walked to the center of the hall, the same place where she had stood a year ago to make her reports as a humble ambassador. But now she stood differently. Her posture was that of someone who knew they held all the power in the room. "Council members," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustic systems. "You asked for this meeting. I am here to listen to what you have to say." Counselor Zeth was the first to speak. His logical nature forced him to address the facts directly. "Admiral Vasquez, the Confederation formally apologizes for our actions against humanity. We were wrong to exclude you from our decisions. We were wrong to attempt to manipulate galactic politics to reduce your influence. We were wrong to blame you for conflicts we secretly created." Elena nodded. "Thank you for the honesty. Continue." Counselor Mark Thorne stood up, his forearms spread in the Kalari gesture of total surrender. "We beg for humanity's return. Without your people, the galaxy is tearing itself apart. We need your diplomatic skills, your ability to understand and connect different species, your technology, your protection. Name your terms. We will accept anything." The Simphite collective sang in harmony, their many voices carrying deep sadness. "Wisdom in hindsight shows us truth we ignored. Humans were never servants to command. Humans were foundation stone holding galaxy structure together. Without you, all falls to chaos." Elena listened to their words, then walked slowly around the hall. Her footsteps echoed in the vast space. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "For 200 years, humanity served this galaxy faithfully. We asked for nothing more than the chance to help create peace and understanding between species who had been fighting for millennia. We succeeded beyond anyone's dreams. Trade flourished. Wars ended. Smaller species were protected. The galaxy became a better place." She stopped walking and turned to face the council. "And you repaid our service by deciding we were too dangerous to trust. You excluded us from major decisions. You planned to destroy our reputation and remove us from power. You would have made us outcasts in the very galaxy we helped save." Counselor Zeth's logical mind forced him to accept the accusation. "Yes, we did all of those things. And we were wrong." "You were not just wrong," Elena said. "You were blind. You thought humanity was weak because we chose to serve others instead of ruling them. You thought our emotions made us unpredictable and dangerous. You never understood that our emotions were what made us good at helping others." Elena activated a holographic display that filled the center of the hall. It showed star maps that included regions the council had never seen before. "While you were plotting against us, humanity was making new friends. The void swimmers who live between the stars. The deep builders who forge worlds in stellar cores. The wanderer fleets who have traveled beyond the edge of known space. The forest minds who think in geological time. Species that you never found because you were too busy fighting each other to explore." The display changed to show images of ships and habitats unlike anything the council had ever imagined. Cities built inside gas giant storms. Fleets that could move through dimensions the Confederation did not know existed. Beings made of pure energy working alongside humans to build technologies that seemed like magic. "These species had been watching the Confederation for millennia," Elena continued. "They saw the wars, the mistrust, the way larger species bullied smaller ones. They wanted no part of your civilization. But when humanity reached out to them with friendship instead of conquest, they listened. They shared their knowledge. They became our allies. Counselor Mockthorn's voice was barely a whisper. How many species? How large is this new alliance? Elena's smile was not cruel, but it was absolutely confident. Large enough that the Confederation is no longer the dominant power in this part of the galaxy. Strong enough that we could have conquered your remaining worlds at any time in the past year. Wise enough that we chose not to. The hall fell completely silent. The council members finally understood the true scope of what they had lost and what they were facing. Humanity had not just withdrawn from the Confederation. They had built a better one. What do you want from us? Counselor Zeth asked. Elena's expression softened slightly. What we have always wanted. Peace. Cooperation. The chance for all species to grow and thrive together. But this time, it will be done properly. She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a new treaty document. If you want humanity's help to rebuild, here are our terms. First, complete transparency. No more secret meetings, no more hidden agendas. All major decisions affecting the galaxy must be made with full participation from all member species. Second, equality. Humanity will not return as servants or even as special advisors. We will be partners with full voting rights in all matters. Our new allies will be offered membership in the Confederation with the same rights as any other species. Third, protection. Never again will larger species be allowed to bully or destroy smaller ones. The new Confederation will have the power and the will to protect any member who is threatened. Fourth, growth. The galaxy is huge and full of wonders we have not discovered yet. The new Confederation will focus on exploration and cooperation, not on controlling what we already have. Elena paused and looked each council member in the eyes. These terms are not negotiable. Accept them, and humanity will help you rebuild a galaxy better than the one you destroyed. Reject them, and we will leave you to face the consequences of your choices alone. Counselor Zeth considered the terms with his logical mind,